الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. قال الله العظيم في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما أرسلنا قبلك من المرسلين إلا إنهم ليأكلون الطعام ويمشون في الأسواق وجعلنا بعضكم لبعض فتنة أتصبرون وكان ربك بصيرا. وقال الذين لا يرجون لقاءنا لولا أنزل علينا الملائكة أو نرى ربنا لقد استكبروا في أنفسهم وعتوا عتوا كبيرا. يوم يرون الملائكة لا بشرى يومئذ للمجرمين ويقولون هجرا محجورا. وقدمنا إلى ما عملوا من عمل فجعلناه هباء منثورا. أصحاب الجنة يومئذ خير مستقرا وأحسن مقيلا. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. The Aqidah, or the basic, fundamental part of someone's faith, the roots, what everything is built upon. This is the most basic part, yet it is the most important part. Is this basic part, or this fundamental part of faith, attained by your intellect or by your emotion? Such as, I'm comfortable with it, that's why I follow it. You'll find there are some that use intellect but adjust everything else using their emotion. To begin with, they use intellect, but then they say, hold on, my religion, I agree with a bit of this and a bit of that, but not with that. And Certainly not with that. And they form their own faith. And there are those that don't use any intellect whatsoever. They base their decision making and their faith upon their emotion and how they feel at the time. Take, for example, when it comes to purchasing a home. There are those that when it comes to purchasing a home, they look to find the location is good, that you have good neighbours is another important part. They check with the RTA to make sure no roads are going to be built through in the future. And they check with the SRA to make sure that there's no future rail line about to be built there. They check for termites. They check for everything possible. And lastly, they look at what? They look at the decor. They look at the colour of the house. They look at all these things that are not so essential as the former. But then there are those that walk into a house and go, you know what, this would make a good study. I'll purchase this house. Oh great, this would be a good sunroom. I'll purchase this house. Lovely. These white walls are clean. I'll purchase this house. Same goes with buying a car. How often have you seen the difference between someone that's never purchased a car and someone that has purchased a car? For example, my brother has a habit. When he sees an advertisement for a car for sale, he'll pick up the phone. He'll call. The second the person says his name is Sam or Michael, he knows that this person is Middle Eastern. And thus, because of his experience, he knows that he's in for a rort. Immediately he says, I'm not interested. This comes from experience. However, the one that's never purchased a car before, upon arriving, he'll see a car and say, this looks great. And someone says, look, there's an excess amount of white smoke Assalamu rahmatullah, coming from this car. They say, it looks good. So white smoke, it's good. It doesn't matter. They don't look at they don't ask about what's the motor like or the running gear. All they are worried about is this car looking good. How economical it is with petrol, not interested. The car looks good. And likewise when someone is about to get married. There are those that look for the essential parts. There are those that look specifically for religion and everything is secondary. And then there are those that look for looks. And their main thing, and this is the majority of guys these days, and the majority of girls. You wouldn't believe how many guys and girls, their first thing they look for is looks. And then they don't worry about the other things later. But the problem is, they judge with what makes them feel comfortable initially, but do not realize the consequences of these actions. Because the ones that use their intellect, to come to a conclusion in deciding their faith are the ones that achieve their success. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If you were to meet your average Joe on the street and ask them, what faith do you follow? You'll find differing answers. Some say, look, I believe there is a God, but I don't know what religion to follow. Others will say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Hindu, or whatever you. And if you ask them, why do you follow this faith? Some will say, look, Christianity is a religion of love. God is love. We are taught to love. There's no hate in our faith. Your God has 99 names, they say. I don't know who gave this idea to people. You know, when they say God has 99 names, where the hell did they get that from? In the Quran, it doesn't say Asma Allah al-Husna, and doesn't say Tis'at, doesn't say Mi'a illa Wahad, doesn't say anything like that. It says God has names to call him by. And if you read Dua Jawshan, which is full of the names of God, I'm sure you won't find only 99. Where they came up to the conclusion of 99 probably was to work out that palm thing, where they say, look at your palm, one says 18, the other says 81. If you add them together, that's 99, the names of God. This is the conclusion they'd come to. But it's a numbers game. They say these 99 names of your God, not one of them is love. This is an answer they give, and our God is all about love. I don't want to debate this specific point. We'll move on. Some of them, for example, give you this answer was the answer given by Josh McDowell in a debate with Ahmed Didat. After losing the debate, the end of the debate, all he said was what? Through Jesus I learnt to love. So what? You think we didn't learn to love? Buddhists learned to love through who they follow, Siddhartha Gautama. The Jews learned how to love through Moses. The Muslims learned how to love through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But it's the answer of defeat. Or I remember one guy, this girl actually contacted me through email, and she told me my brother's become a Sunni. So I asked her, what was he before he was Sunni? She says, we're Shia family. I said, do your parents pray? She said, why do you ask that? I said, because your parents don't pray. I have that feeling. She said, why? I go, because if your parents prayed, and this guy knew who Imam Ali was, he wouldn't become a Sunni, he'd become a Fasiq. The only way out is to go astray. You don't go backwards. And no one returns to constrain them. No one returns to restrain themselves. If someone wants to break out and they know the truth, they just go wayward. They don't go to another form of restraint. It's like, for example, sitting in the front seat of the car wearing a seatbelt. And then you feel uncomfortable, go into the back seat and put on the seatbelt. No one goes back and restrains themselves. They just jump out of the car and go for a run. They leave it altogether. So then I said, what did he know about Imam Ali? In the end, I asked her for his number. I said, I'll call him. I called him. I said, look, I wish to invite you for lunch sometime. We'll have lunch together. And he said, who are you? I said, if you want, we can have breakfast. If you think lunch have come across a bit too quick on you, we can have breakfast together. I was trying to be jocular, trying to be funny in order for him to... But then I realized which crew he had become with, because he was quite stern in the manner that he spoke. I knew he was with the groups that don't smile. The ones that surround the graves of the Imams in Medina, those ones. So anyway, I asked him, all right then, do you want to come to breakfast or lunch and bring your Imam with you, the Imam of the masjid? And we'll sit and we'll have a discussion. And he said, now I know. My sister has called you to contact me. I said, yes. And then he said, listen, you can't change me. And I said, why? He said, have you been to our mosque, the old Imam Ali mosque, Al-Zahra mosque in Arncliffe on a Friday? I said, yes. He said, how many people congregate there? How big is the Jama'ah? I said, I don't know, it depends, 100, 200, 300, 500. He said, yes. Brother, you see, with my congregation, it is out on the street. He says, we have the biggest congregation. I said, brother, if it's with numbers, become a Catholic. Have you seen when the Pope turns up somewhere? You can't get anywhere. If it's based on numbers, we have a bigger congregation. It makes no sense if I'm going to base my faith on that point. Or the ones that speak of being victorious in battle. We won a battle, therefore we are righteous. You know, one person actually based his religion on this point. I was in Lebanon at the time, and he said to me, you know what? Had the Taliban's defeated the Americans, listen to this. He said, نحن لازم نراجع حساباتنا. He said, if Taliban beat America, we have to rethink what we follow. I said, are you kidding? Israel smashed you so many times. Why aren't you Jewish? They've smashed the entire Middle Eastern region. If it's based upon being victorious in war, it's not based upon any of these. It's based upon this, your intellect. God has given you your intellect in order to deduce where is the correct faith, what is correct and what is not correct. We spoke about those that acted upon what their forefathers would do. They do things that would defy intellect. You look at the people that worship idols. They tell you, all right, but you don't understand it. We don't worship the actual idol. We know that. We're not stupid. We don't assume things. We know you see this idol as a representation of the God that looks like that idol. And same with your animal worship. See, when you come up to a Hindu and say you worship cows, Hindus will make you say, no, we don't worship cows. Even if you were to look in their Sanskrit text, this is funny. In the actual books, the cows are referred to as Devi, which means demigod. But they don't worship it. Because a demigod, if all those that play role-playing games, what's a demigod? A demigod's only partially divine. So the cow's not a full god, but it's a partially divine, it's partially a god. So this is their loophole to get out. However, with this cow, I don't know if you've seen in their ceremonies where they roll up balls of dung, cow poo, and they roll it up and they put it around the temples and sprinkle a bit of cow urine in meals. And in fact, remember when soft drinks began to really flourish in the Asian region, a long time Coke and Pepsi would battle, and out of nowhere an extremist Hindu group came out to sell a cow urine soda. This was in about 2-3 years ago. And this cow urine soda was to hit the market, and you think, what the hell? And the Hindu challenge is always, oh, but you Muslims drink camel urine. How many Muslims have you heard of that drink camel urine? The difference between the camel urine and the cow urine, when someone asks you, the camel urine is permissible when someone has an illness. It's like when someone uses something that they wouldn't use normally. How many people like to use suppositories when they're not sick? How many people do you know like to put things where things are supposed to come out when they're not sick? But it's during an ailment we do abnormal things. And during an ailment this thing is done. However, no one I've heard of has ever tasted it. Whereas in your culture or your religion, this has barakah, this has blessing. This is a thing that has so much blessing. So when you see the lack of intellect there, or even in the case, and this is a known thing, that when a young man would die, his woman, his young bride or his young wife would be cremated with him. Was she dead? No. But she gets cremated with him. This is how the culture works. So we need to make sure that our faith is built with our intellect, and it's built upon something solid. It's like the proverb that the Christians use in the New Testament, in the book of Matthew, where it speaks about the foolish man who built his house on sand. Imagine someone build their house on sand. You know, when we speak about sand, you know what we're speaking about. We're not speaking about solid earth. We're speaking about people that build. Imagine someone was to build their house on sand. What would happen? It wouldn't take long for the house to collapse. So your religion must be built upon something solid, something firm, something that can be defended with the intellect. Don't think that means everything in religion has to be able to be defended with the intellect. Just the basics. Because sometimes, as in the case of Nabi Musa alayhi salam, where he went with Al-Khidr, and Al-Khidr did things in front of him. Sometimes God tests you with things. However, the basics is no trickery. The basics is no plotting. The basics are clear. They're vivid. There's nothing like, sometimes I read one writer, he said the tawheed of some Muslims is different to others. That's wrong. There's only one tawheed. Or one person once said, and I've heard this from some people, they say that there are many ways to God. These, what they call not polytheists, not pantheists. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yeah. The people that believe that there are many paths to God, all roads lead to Rome. These people totally ignore the Quran when it clearly states that there's only one path to God. There's only one upright path to God. And this is why I need to have a firm faith. Because if my faith is not built upon something firm, if you remember Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If you remember the ones, when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was walking with Qambar, and they heard a man praying in the middle of the night and weeping in his prayers. And Qambar said, good tidings to this man. I wish I was like this man, praying at this time in the night. And the Imam said a statement, which is present in Nahj al-Balagha. He said, Nawm ala yaqeen khayrun min salatin fi shak, or khayrun min salatin ala shak. That to sleep with certainty is better than to pray with doubt. Someone that sleeps knows where they are, knows where their path is better than someone that sits there. You see these people that you see with carpet burn on their forehead, have no idea what they are doing, no idea what their worship is all about. But they just do it. When you enter the Kaaba and you see these people, you're better off sleeping there while they worship. Because this sleep that you perform there is better than a prayer that has doubt. Now, like I said, we build, our basic is we build with our intellect, but we don't branch out with it. Now let me explain, let's see this, I want to leave this point for tonight. In the following nights, we actually explain this specific point. What do I mean by we don't branch out with our intellect, we just build with it? We need to look at the way we perceive our faith and the way we discriminate. We discriminate with our faith. We discriminate against our faith. The problem with this is the way we are raised in the West. The West raises you in the environment you're in to abhor your faith. And I'm not talking about people that are outside this center. I'm talking about people even that attend this center. Some of the statements you hear people say, you go, God, is this guy really a Muslim or raised in an Islamic way? Because of the stances they take against Islamic things. Because we are raised in a world that teaches us to hate ourselves. We are raised in an environment that teaches you that you are the enemy. There's no way. You know when someone says there is a war on terrorism, there's no such thing. There is a war on Islam. The war is on Islam. There's no such thing as a terrorism. Terrorism is a made-up word. You want proof of this? The guy that bombed in Norway and killed I don't know how many people, BBC, which is supposed to be a moderate, BBC is not considered Fox News. It's not considered something outlandish. It's supposed to be moderate. It's supposed to be like Reuters. It's supposed to be something that's considered credible. BBC said, we are still unsure if this is a terrorist attack. The guy bombed something and he killed a massive amount of civilians. That's not terrorism. We're unsure if he's a Muslim. This is all they're saying. And we're still not able. See, the problem is they were still not able to link him to Islam, so they couldn't call it a terrorist attack as yet. Even the Washington sniper, who they conveniently added Mohamed to his name, even though it's not on his passport, it's not on any of his documentation, they call it the Mohamed Matthew, I forget what the second name. What do they call them killings? The Muhammad Allen killings. They actually don't even include John. It's called the Muhammad something else killings. As long as the Muhammad's there. And the Washington sniper, you know what his motive was? He's a very cluey guy. And I need to round it up just with this point, because inshallah I didn't want to go too far into the second part of spiritual evidence. But the Muhammad, a guy, that the sniper wanted to kill his wife. Okay? Now, in order not to get caught out because he's having fights with his wife, he said, let's make it out like there's a random sniper killing anybody. While I whack one or two people, I kill my wife in the process, and then this sniper just disappears. But what happened? He killed one, he said, you know what, this is all right. He killed another. And then he forgot about the game plan. And he went out of whack. This is what I took from the FBI. Forget about what the rest say. This is what the FBI, the people that investigate this case, this is what they said was the case with him. Inshallah, on the following nights, we will continue this discussion because we didn't have enough time to continue how the Arabs have been affected in this manner. And we need to break down the introductory verse that I used. And inshallah, we'll talk about what I mean by building with intellect but not branching with intellect. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us our sins, especially in this month. As much as you can, ask Allah for forgiveness. And ask Allah to forgive those that have harmed you. And ask Allah also in this month to find the mercy, to let those that you have harmed find mercy in their heart to forgive you. We ask Allah not to take us from this earth until He is pleased with our actions, and not to take us from here until we are completely on the wilaya of Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. And we ask Allah, most importantly, to hasten the reappearance of our Imam Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman al-Mehdi, Ajal Allah farajahu al-Sharif. And all together read the dua. I'm going to allow that we read it together in this month. You never know. One of these nights, inshaAllah, we hit the spot and the dua is accepted by Allah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma kul walika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا